Hi guys, for those of you that are new to my channel, my name is Alphabet Poker, and this is actually my second video. My first video is in the middle of a re-upload, and today we'll be going over a few hands that I played at the Hard Rock in Hollywood, Florida. We're playing 1-3 with a $500 max cap, and I think there are some really interesting hands to go over. For those of you that know me, you'll know that the Hard Rock Hollywood is actually my home turf, and every holiday season, there's a lot of action that comes at these tables. A lot of fun antics and banter that happen, and big pots that get played. Without further ado, let's get into the poker. In the first interesting hand, we pick up ace-3 offsuit and open to $10 for middle position. Folds around to the big blind who makes the call, and so does under the gun. 3 ways to a flop of 3-7 jack rainbow. Checks to me, and I see no point in betting here, so I just check it back. Turn is an ace, so we pick up a sneaky 2 pair, and it checks to me again. I have it pretty locked up, and I don't want to scare anyone off, so I bet $15 or half pot, and only under the gun calls. River is another ace, giving us aces full of 3s, and this is a great card because it makes it a lot less likely that I had an ace on the turn now. With that information, I think that he thinks that I won't have an ace, and he might also have a decent jack based on pre-flop action, like king jack or queen jack. My thought process was that he thought he was good on the flop, didn't believe me on the turn, and now definitely doesn't believe me on the river, so I like to overbet bomb the river 133% to the tune of $80. Sure enough, everything goes according to plan, and he calls me off pretty quickly, and we show we have the goods.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, I was asked to stop recording at this point in the video, so I'll just have to cover the rest of the footage with freeze frame. We see pocket 6s under the gun and we make it 15. Hijack and big blind both call. Flop comes 6, 9, 10 rainbow, and big blind checks. I bet $30 and both players call. Turn is an ace and big blind checks again. I bet half pot for $50 and only the hijack calls. Heads up to a river, which is another ace, and I overbet jam for $275 effective since I have him covered. He tanks and then he folds. In the next interesting hand, we're in the cutoff with ace-queen offsuit, and there's a raise from hijack to 15. We bump it up to 35, and the big blind cold calls while the hijack comes along. Flop is 9-8-3 rainbow. It checks to me, and I bet a third pot for $30. Only the big blind calls. Turn is a 7, and big blind checks again. I barrel for $80, and he goes into the tank before check raising me to $240. Side note, this guy was definitely a thinking player, and I don't have any history with him, but when I was watching him make some of his moves, they reminded me of my own bluff raises. At first, I was going to fold to this raise, but I started to wonder what he really had that cold called me from the big blind. All of his straights seem pretty unlikely, as Jack 10 and 5-6 aren't great hands to cold call preflop from the big blind. He could be repping some sets or turning a hand like pocket 10s into a bluff if he thinks I have an overpair based on my action. I think about it for a minute and come to the conclusion that if he has a middle strength hand that's not nutted, he's gonna have to be sure he's right in order to play for all of it. So I come over the top to 665, about 440 more for him to call. He tanks and tanks, and at this point I feel like my heart is beating through my chest. Finally, he reluctantly folds, and I don't show, but his friend to my left told me that I was visibly shaking during my bluff, so I'm glad that he didn't look at me. He later revealed that he had pocket 6s for an open ender, but was trying to apply pressure to my ace-high combos. The next 4 hands all have to do with one action player who was splashing around all night and was in for about 6 buy-ins. He was showing complete airball bluffs, and this is the type of guy you just wait for a good spot to get the money in against. We open king queen of hearts to 15 in middle position and get 3-bet to 50 from the action player. We call and go to a flop of king 8-6 2 spades. I check and he bets 50 and I call. Turn is a queen, giving us top 2, and he was steaming at this point, so I wanted to see if I can make an ego play and induce him to shove. He was already down a few thousand from just spazzing out and coming over the top with garbage, and he got called out a few times, but it was working in smaller pots for him. So I donk lead for 100 and he calls. River is a 3 of spades, and I check, and he snap shoves for 350. I think if he has the flush, then he has me, but I've seen too many bluffs from him, and this is one of the hands where I can bluff catch him with, so I don't think for too long and just flick it in, and he says we're good. Although I've only talked about a bunch of winning hands, I'm actually kind of bleeding between big hands because I'm trying to get into good spots against the action player, and things aren't working out. For example, a few spots like 3-betting pocket 8s or 9s to $80 against a large open, he either cold 4-bets me to the tune of 350 or just shoves, And although I feel like I'm actually ahead in a lot of these spots, I think there's just better spots to pick him off in the future. An orbit goes by before we pick up Jack 10 of diamonds in late position and open to $15 against the same opponent, and he raises to 50 again. I think this hand is fine to fold against this player type. It's totally okay to sit around and wait for a bigger hand, because he's going to put the money in regardless. But at the moment, I felt like it had decent playability against his 3-bet range, so I make the call. Flop comes King Queen 2 Rainbow, and he checks. I bet $30 trying to name my price for my open-ended straight draw, and he calls. Turn is an 8, no help to us, and I bet $80 trying to get him to fold a lot of his garbage hands, but in hindsight, this is a bad bet because he had been calling every bet all night, so I don't know why I thought this would work. He of course calls, and we get to a river of a board pairing deuce, and I was thinking of shoving the river, but before I could even get the chance to, he just dong shoves up for about the size of the pot. Nothing I can do but fold here, so hats off to him for winning in the game of chicken, because I never really believed either of us had anything there. At this point in the night, I'm actually down about $400, and a little bit tilted that I can't get past this player, so I try to make a move in this hand. We look at ace-9 offsuit from early position and bump it up to $15. I just want to pause the video really quickly. This highlight right here is an example of how fancy play syndrome works, and I wanted to include it to show you guys that it can cost you a lot of money. Anyways, we get 3-bet by a tighter reg in middle position to $35, followed up by a cold 4-bet from the action player to $125. I saw him make this move a lot early on in the session, and I thought it was just him clicking buttons, so blinded by some confidence and ego, I 5-bet jam over the top to $375 effective. Folds back around to him, and he snap calls with pocket jacks. We run it twice. First board comes ace high with 2 diamonds, and what do you know, it goes runner runner diamond for him to make a flush. Second board's no help, and we torch a bunch of money for no reason. I think it's pretty important to just bet your made hands when you have them, and stay out of the way from these kind of spots against a player like this. Sometimes they just show up with the goods. On our last hand against this villain, he opens to $20 from early position. I peel ace queen of diamonds in the cutoff, and I raise to 80. He calls, and we go to a flop of ace-9 3-2 hearts. He checks, and I bet 80, and he quickly calls. Turn is a queen of hearts, completing the front door flush draw, while giving us top 2 pair. He checks, and I check it back. River is a 4 of hearts, and he snap shoves with 4 to a flush. At this point, I felt like he could just have any 2 cards, and he's shown straight up airball bluffs, so I wouldn't put it past him if he had absolutely nothing. I just shrug and call, and sure enough, he shows 10-6 offsuit, no heart. Finally, in the last interesting hand of note, I open ace-7 offsuit to $20 on a 3-handed table, and a player that just came from 2-5 with $1,000 in his stack sits to my left. He calls, and we go to a flop of 2-3-6 all hearts. I donk for $30, and he thinks about it and raises to 90. I flat, and the turn comes a 5 of hearts. I bet 100, and he calls. River is now a 4 of hearts, putting a straight flush on board, and I tank before putting in a purple $500 chip, which I thought was an all-in. I did this because I thought he was only 300 effective, when in reality he was about 1.3k effective, since he came from a broken table, but the technical rule is that you can only be in for 500 at 1-3, even if you came from a 2-5 table, but nobody cares since it was 4 AM. I wanted to rep the straight flush to the 7 to steal the pot, and he chuckles at me. So I show the 7 of hearts, and he actually drops his smile and freezes before showing me the king of hearts. At this point, the realization kicked in for me that he was much deeper than I thought, and it began to run through my mind how disgusting it would be if he jammed right now. So I sit there trying to focus on the board as hard as I can, and he actually tanks for a long time. The longer he tanks, the more nervous I get, thinking he's actually going to come over the top, and I'm begging for a fold. Finally, he reluctantly folds, and I think he knows he's just calling for a chop at best. Okay, so that's going to wrap up this session. We were in the game for 1,500, out of the game for 1,800 for a net win of $300. Going over some of the stats, we have an hourly of $74.69 per hour across 4 hours played for this session, net big blinds of 100 big blinds, and 24.9 big blinds per hour. At the lowest point, we were down about $750, and at the peak, we were up about $800. Unfortunately, we weren't able to capture that peak, but a win is a win, and we left pretty late that night. I would say I really enjoyed playing with that action player. He was a lot of fun, put me in some tough spots, and I'm going to work on that first video re-upload, so stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for more content in the future. I'm working on trying to get a media pass at either the Hard Rock Hollywood or somewhere else. If you guys know any home games that I could play at in the Fort Lauderdale or Broward area, please let me know, preferably so I can provide more content and film for you guys, and hopefully we'll see where it goes. I would love to get more table footage for you guys, but yeah, Until then, see you!